day. I told the neighbor, the girl said, hey y'all, watch this. My fate was a broken arm and my reward, one big kiss. When Daddy asked me why I did it, I made him laugh out loud when I told him, cause the chicks would dig it. Scars heal, glory fades, and all we're left with are the memories made. Oh yeah, pain hurts, but only for a minute. Your life is short, so go on and live it, cause the chicks dig it. Oh yeah, the chicks dig it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I too loud? All right, thank you all for joining us here today. And you're going to be learning a little bit more about this gentleman that you've seen in some of the pictures here, Fred Grotenhuis. It's my distinct honor and privilege here today to be introducing the Fred Grotenhuis Memorial Scholarship for Remote Pilot Certification. I can think of no better way to honor Fred's memory than to offer this opportunity to a new generation of young people fascinated by flying machines and for the many ways drones and other unmanned vehicles will be used by them in the future. For those who didn't know Fred, I'd like to first share some thoughts about this scholarship's namesake. Thomas Parnell wrote a poem many years ago that makes me think of Fred today, and it goes something like this. My days have been so wondrous free, the little birds that fly, with careless ease from tree to tree, but were as blessed as I. Having flown with Fred myself a number of times, I believe some birds really were jealous of him. Fred was more than a skilled aviator and pilot. He truly loved flying anything. And if you knew Fred, you know that. Whether it was a fixed-wing airplane or a helicopter, paraglider or balloon, Fred was most at home above the ground. I remember the first time he took me up in his brand new powered parachute. He had this usual boyish excitement and enthusiasm to take his new toy up for a spin. As soon as we got airborne, he immediately started testing out the parameters and the capabilities of his new craft. Up and down, round and around, to the left, to the right, touch and go, just having an enormous amount of fun. And I remember thinking that every maneuver he made was so smooth and effortless, it was as if the airfoil and the engine were simply an extension of his own body. At one point, a number of birds actually joined us in flight within an arm's reach of us while we were flying. It was as if they were coming over to say hello to an old friend and fellow flyer. For me, it was a joyous experience to be with Fred, soaring with the little birds that fly with careless ease. But his flying days began long before that day, in the Army Air Corps during the Vietnam War as a helicopter pilot. Though decorated with a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, he was not one to boast about his personal sacrifices. He did, however, enjoy telling stories that involved flying. There's one story in particular he would tell with a twinkle in his eye and a mischievous smile on his face. And if you did know Fred, you've probably heard this story before, but as I recall it, it went something like this. After Vietnam, Fred remained in the Army as a helicopter pilot. It was his job to fly the very high-ranking 4-star General Boyle around Germany. One day, he was taking the general to a soccer field. Now, the field was surrounded by tall trees, so the approach view was rather limited. But as they descended for a safe landing, Fred had to maneuver away from a large tent that was set up in the middle of the field. Thinking of the band's safety, in case something happened to the helicopter's engine, he attempted to radio someone on the ground to have them move, but no one responded. With no choice, he had to land closer to the tent than he originally had planned. It just so happened, however, that under the tent was a big cake for the general's birthday. They were throwing him a surprise birthday party. But as the downdraft of the chopper blades reached the tent, the canvas started flapping in the wind and the cake went airborne itself. A lieutenant came over to him to reprimand him for coming too close to the tent and started to yelling at Fred. And although the engine was on and Fred couldn't hear exactly what he was saying, he could certainly read lips well enough to know that it was not a compliment. I would imagine that Fred felt a certain pride that day because his passenger, the general, spoke up in support of him. The general got out and had the lieutenant's heels locked for 20 minutes, according to Fred's story. The general knew enough about flying to know that Fred did everything that he was supposed to do right. The lieutenant himself was then reprimanded for bringing out a marching band when they were trying to land and for not responding to the radio call. Every time Fred told this story, he had a big smile of satisfaction on his face. It was probably very similar to the one he was wearing that day when the general was on his side for doing the right thing. Not only was Fred a great pilot, he was a tireless enthusiast of life itself. He thoroughly enjoyed the challenge of learning new skills. Whether it was sailing or goose hunting, he would read voraciously as much as he could find about a particular topic that interested him until he felt confident that he knew enough about it to proceed. Because of this, he was able to understand how things worked and, as a result, was able to experience more enjoyment than frustration when he partook in a particular activity. His appetite for learning was matched only by his love of ice cream. And I shared that appetite with him many times. But in this way, Fred was very similar to another great aviator that some of you may have heard of, Wilbur Wright. Long before they achieved success at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, Wilbur and his brother Orville were known for their ingenuity and inquisitiveness years before they had started building their airplane. Wilbur is known as once writing to the Smithsonian Institution, and this is long before the days that people could just go on the computer and Google information. But Wilbur wrote to this esteemed institution requesting every piece of literature that they had about flight. Wilbur, too, was a voracious reader and wanted to learn everything he could about a topic before he proceeded, just like Fred. Wilbur and Orville eventually became self-taught aeronautical engineers without ever once going to college themselves. They had the desire and the ability themselves to pursue their own education. Now, many people know the Wright brothers as first being involved in a bicycle shop. But before even designing, building, selling, and repairing bicycles, the Wright brothers were also successful printers. In fact, they were always fascinated with machinery and once built their print shop using spare parts from an old car and an old gravestone laying around. And using those spare parts, were able to manufacture a print shop whereby they produced a regular newspaper for the local community. Now, not surprisingly, Fred shared similar traits as the Wright brothers. He had superb analytical skills and a knack for repairing machines. He could often be found at his little workshop bench repairing radio-controlled helicopters and other flying craft. He loved tinkering with them, and I don't know whether he was was more successful at flying or crashing them. I'm not quite sure, but he certainly enjoyed flying them, no doubt about it. And for years beforehand, Fred was a successful printer himself, owning and operating the Harmony Press. Fred was always ready to share his life with others. He was especially fond of children, and he would be in his glory right now to see some of the young people in the audience, and would be down there talking to you guys himself. If he were here right now, he'd be so delighted and proud to have his name attached to a scholarship that would give young people the opportunity to explore a flight-oriented career with drones. To quote David McCullough from his book On the Wright Brothers, "It began with a toy, a small helicopter brought home by their father, Bishop Milton Wright, a great believer in the educational value of toys." I think Fred would agree with Milton. This scholarship in his name advances this principle superbly. And now to the scholarship. What is this scholarship all about? Well, the Fred Grotenhuis Memorial Scholarship is being made available to students 16 years or older who wish to work toward obtaining their remote pilot certificate from the FAA. The certificate will allow them to legally operate a small unmanned aerial vehicle on a commercial basis. Currently, no certificate is required for recreational flying, but there are many opportunities in the commercial sector which require the certificate. Students do not have to be college-bound in order to apply. We're going to be learning today what is involved in going through the online course and taking the appropriate test for certification. We'll also be hearing about various professions which currently use drones to service their clients or communities. I want you now to be like Fred. Be like Fred and take full advantage of the personal stories, experiences, and expertise of the talented and gifted panel of speakers we have for you today. And if our connection is ready, let's begin with Alan Perlman, the founder of the UAV Coach Drone Pilot Ground School, Skyping with us today from afar. Alan, are you ready? Can we hear Alan?
Testing, testing. Hello, hello.
Alan, it sounds like you can hear me.
I can.
Excellent. I just want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to speak with us now. So, ladies and gentlemen, Alan Perlman.
Hello, hello. Just one quick sound check. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. This is so cool. I can see you from afar. Thank you to Julia and to really everyone else who came together to make this event and scholarship happen, and for inviting me to speak about the drone industry and the FAA certification process. I took a look at the flyer for this event, and it says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" That's my wildest dreams. I think that I'd be helping people break into the drone industry for a living. But here we are. What a crazy world we all live in. So I'm really humbled, really excited to be here. Thank you again. There are a few things that I want to cover in the next 5 to 10 minutes. First thing is a quick background about me and how I got into the industry. The second thing is to talk a little bit about the opportunity of what it means to be a drone pilot in this very nascent but fast-growing industry. And then the third thing where I'm going to spend most of the time is talking about the certification process. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have at any point. So, a quick background on me. Back in 2015, I'll try and keep this short because I tend to be a little long-winded. I purchased my first drone back in 2014. I didn't know anything about the rules. In downtown New York City, I brought it up into the air and I crashed it about 10 seconds. This was a $500 drone that I crashed in the middle of New York City. I could have been arrested for reckless endangerment. I'm glad that there were no police officers around. I'm glad that the drone wrecked into the hubcap of the car and hit the tire in the hubcap instead of the actual car. I went home that night and I was very upset with myself. I started reading about the drone industry and I'm thinking, I'm a smart guy, how could I have let this happen? I've been operating remote control cars and boats and helicopters my whole life. Turns out, a lot of other people were having the same issue. I think where the industry was at the time, where the systems were really starting to break out of sort of hobbyist engineering territory and entering the mass market. And it's really easy to go on Amazon.com and get an aircraft, a quadcopter, a flying lawnmower shipped to your home without knowing anything about anything. And that's kind of the position I found myself in, and it was really scary. So, long story short, I started a company, UAV Coach, focused on both education and safety in the industry. It started out as a blog. I was writing and researching articles about the industry, about insurance, about the certification process, and every single day, my jaw kept dropping the more that I learned about how people were using these systems professionally. And now I'm working on it full time and supporting our students. We have an email list of about 50,000 drone pilots all over the world who share regulatory updates with. We've got a training program that we put students through to get them certified through the FAA here in the US, and just very, very excited with how things have been going. So that's a little bit about me. Let's talk about the drone industry opportunity. As you're likely aware, people are using drones to do a lot of really good stuff. I think the average person is not in this room, hears the word drone and they think military. But the reality is that all of that technology is now available to us in some form or fashion. I'm sort of oversimplifying it. But 3, 4, 5 years ago, none of these aircraft existed. And it's just unbelievable how far we've come really in the last 2 years. So people are using drones to market real estate, right? Not just houses, to take pictures and videos of golf courses, resort properties, dude mansions, real estate. And we're talking about properties that are worth that much, luxury properties. The people who own those properties are in charge of marketing those properties are willing to pay top dollar for professional aerial systems operator to come out and take some high quality photos and videos. So that's what a lot of people are doing. There are many, many, many more applications beyond just basic aerial photography and videography. There is agriculture. Farmers are using drones to capture much stronger, more timely data about their crops. If the irrigation systems are working, if there was a big storm that came through and they've got acres and acres and acres of land, they can quickly assess damage. Construction companies are using drones to do things like that and modeling work and big volumetric survey of dirt piles. Turns out dirt is very expensive to have and to move, and it really benefits construction companies to be able to get a quick aerial perspective and some solid data around what they're doing. There are also some really cool inspection opportunities. People are using drones to inspect solar panels. You can strap a thermal camera to a drone and actually see if heat is properly resonating from a solar panel or from a wind turbine, from a power line. Communication towers, microwave towers, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. I'm really just scratching the surface. Hopefully this is getting amped up because the drone industry is very, very early stage. You may have heard about drone delivery. That's something that we're likely to see more of. Probably not in the next few months, but over the next maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years. And I think that the drones are going to get smaller, they're going to get smarter, and they're going to be used in more and more and more applications. So, to be completely honest with you, when I first started flying a drone, I thought, this is a cool toy, this is a fad, people are going to buy them just like they bought Beanie Babies and Furbies, and it's going to go away in a few years. But I do not believe that anymore. The drone industry is very much here to stay. The third thing that I want to talk about, and I know I'm moving very quickly here, I'll make sure that you have my contact information if you have any questions about any of this beyond this presentation. But the third thing I want to talk about is the certification process. So FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, regulates small unmanned aerial systems, as well as all aircraft in the national airspace system here in the U.S. Every country regulates their airspace a little differently. So here in the U.S., it's the FAA, and Canada, it's Transport Canada, in Australia, it's the Civil Aviation Authority. but the FAA is the main body that we're looking at. So in August, just a few months ago, in August of 2016, the FAA created a brand new certification program. And a bit of background, I have to be careful because I don't want to get too into the weeds here. But let's just say that flying an unmanned aerial system up to this point has been a pain in the butt. And the FAA has made it a lot easier, and it's a lot more sensible now to get a remote pilot certificate. You can understand what you can and cannot do. There are going to be a lot of regulatory changes over the next several months, as the industry continues to develop. Most people in the industry are pretty happy with where we're at right now, and just a quick round of applause to the FAA moving very quickly with all of this. So how does it work? At a basic level, you have to pass a multiple choice test, and then apply for the certificate, and then send the certificate, and that's it. And you can start operating small unmanned aerial systems commercially. There's a lot more to it than that, of course. So here's some of the topics that I have to be very comfortable with, not only while you're studying for and passing your test, but actually operating the drone. You're going to have to learn about the operating limitations of the rules. Flying it during the day versus flying at night. Extra paperwork you're going to have to fill out to fly at night. You're going to have to know different types of airspace you're flying in. So you're going to learn how to read a sectional chart. It's like the Google Maps of the National Airspace System. It tells you where you can and cannot fly. It's the same chart that a manned aircraft pilot consults, before a flight. You're going to learn how to read that and know controlled versus uncontrolled airspace, restricted areas, and so on and so forth. You're going to learn about weather and micrometeorology. If you've ever been interested in studying climate, you're going to learn about density, altitude, and temperature inversion, and the 3 different stages of a thunderstorm. Did you know, for example, that even though the thunderstorm not necessarily approached you, it can shoot hail out miles in front of the thunderstorm? If you're operating a small unmanned aerial system and there's a thunderstorm 15 or 20 miles away, you can probably pack it up and go home. So you're going to learn about some really cool stuff. And it's a 60-question multiple choice test. There are 700 testing centers all over the U.S. You find one that's closest to you. You schedule a testing appointment. You go in and pass the test. As long as you're over the age of 16 or over and you pass the test, you apply online for your certificate, and a temporary version of that certificate is sent to you within a couple of weeks. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. Our average student spends about 3 weeks or 4 weeks studying on course materials, and then they take the test. So from start to finish, you can have that certificate in less than a couple of months, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Because again, you're piloting an aircraft in the National Airspace System. So a little bit about our program. We launched, I started the company, it's called UAV Coach, and we've been blogging and writing about the industry and building a community for the last couple of years. But our training course launched over the summer, right before the new regulations came out. We've had about 3,500 students go through our program. More than 99% of them are passing their tests first try, and we're trying to teach beyond the tests. So we have lectures not just in all of the stuff that you need to learn, but think about the legal ramifications of getting into the industry. As an example, you are taking photos and selling them to a real estate broker. How do you do that? What kind of paperwork do you need? Should you sell the photo? Should you license the photo so you can sell that same photo to somebody else? What contracts do you need? What kind of business would you maybe need to set up? What entity structure options do you have? So we have lectures in regulations and the legality and insurance. Interview a couple of real estate marketers, have them pull back and talk about how they built their businesses. So we have kind of a startup mentality in this. And we work with a lot of larger companies to get their employees and students trained. But I think the vast majority of our students are starting their own aerial service businesses. And not everybody is working at it full time. I think one of the unique positions that you were in as part of this scholarship is, you're going to be in school, so this is something that you can do over a weekend or over a break. And that's the best part about a service-based business. You can really build it to your own schedule, in your own time, and really make it, sort of build it around you and your lifestyle, what goals you put in it. So that's the vast majority of our students. And I think I mentioned this or so hours of studying, and each lecture has active questions. I'm available for support. I built the curriculum with the help of a certified flight instructor, and I support all our students. Most of my day actually is working one-on-one with students. You do end up going through our course. We'll likely be checking over the phone or emailing back and forth at some point. So maybe that kind of covers drone pilot ground school, our training program. I know I'm moving really fast, and I'll make sure to have all my contact information to follow up questions. Just some final thoughts. We've got a jam-packed schedule tonight. Final thoughts here. So much of being successful in this industry has to do with adopting a pilot mindset. So things like checklists and processes, and really doing your research before bringing the flying blower up to the air. And I think my big work in this industry are safety, and safety. And I think the sooner you can embrace that and bring it into your goals of what you're trying to do, the better you're going to be off, and the better the industry is going to be off. So many people who just don't know the rules right now. Just simply by going through the training program, getting certified, you're going to know about drones. And 99% of the people see stuff on TV. And it's really on us to educate and to train, push the industry forward, and help show people that drones are a good thing. It's not just military technology, it's actual real systems that are being used to pretty good stuff. Adopting a pilot mindset, developing good habits, studying at your own pace, really just taking advantage of networking opportunities. I think everybody's excited to be in this industry, and everybody's excited to help everybody else out. There are a lot of questions, and I think the sooner you sort of form a group around you of other people going through the same thing together, the better. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, Julia, thanks to everybody for inviting me here. I don't know if it's time for questions now. If you want to write down the information, my email address is Alan, A-L-A-N, at uavcoach.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have or set up a call to chat. But thank you again.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much for your time. We know you have a very busy schedule, and we certainly appreciate you sharing your wealth of information with us and making your services available to us as a very valuable resource.
Thank you again.
As you can see, if you were paying attention, Alan is a wealth of resources here for anyone interested in getting into operating drones. And just as Wilbur Wright had to write letters, folks today can Google. Alan has already done so much legwork for you and prepared this entire program in such a way to make it easier for you to do things the right way the first time. So definitely, if you're interested in operating drones, look up Alan and his resources. But now, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Ed Smith. He is one of our county's freeholders, as well as a licensed instrument pilot himself. So here to speak with us about various opportunities and jobs on the horizon, let's welcome Ed Smith. I think you'll give a round of applause.
One of my tasks as a freeholder is education. And when Julia first brought this to my attention, I just started to think in terms of jobs. And you've got a great opportunity here because this is the cutting edge of a new industry. And that is something that only happens maybe once or twice in a person's lifetime. And Julia, I think that you could not do anything better to honor Fred's memory than to move forward with this. And I think it's a great initiative. A little bit about myself. I've been flying fixed-wing, single-engine airplanes for over 30 years now. I guess like Fred, I just love it. To get up into the air, to have a different perspective of the world, to just experience flight to me is just such an amazing thing. And starting in Hackettstown, my airplane's still based in Hackettstown. I hold a long-distance record at Hackettstown Airport, which started in 1937. And I flew my little Mooney up to Alaska, and it was a great opportunity. But What I found for me, what aviation does, is it really brings everything together. You're going to learn about, and Alan touched on a lot of it, but you're going to learn about the weather and how air is just like the water in a river, and it's fluid. And you start to see the reactions of things that happen with weather, like you look at the clouds and you have wave clouds. If it's a calm day with a small wind, or you'll have vertical clouds in that are going to give you a thunderstorm, or you're going to see just a flat sky. You're going to learn what kind of air is there. And you match that air with the performance of the craft that you're flying. And like, for instance, I know I have a crosswind coefficient of about 17, 18 knots. Anything more than that's going to make a bad day. You're going to have these same types of limitations with your craft that you're flying. If you have a wind going 15 miles an hour in one direction, and you have a craft capable of maybe doing 10 miles an hour, you're going to go 5 miles an hour backwards, even if everything's going right. And you have to understand what the capabilities are of your craft. And like Alan was talking about, a lot of these things are our ability to meld all of these different pieces of knowledge together, and that's what the education is about. The reason why drones are a great opportunity. For instance, jealously, I would say, wow, we're turning a path, and the pilot may actually become somewhat more of something in the past. Because you have to look at the difference of the cost. Now, my airplane is relatively inexpensive to operate, but as soon as I twist the key, it's $60 an hour for gas, not to mention maintenance and all the other costs that are involved. Amazingly enough, you can buy a drone today for $50 and actually control where you're going to take a look, which is something that basically, either unless you were flying commercial, us pilots were the only ones that had that. And it's a whole new perspective that's but a couple of years old. And to be able to get into something like this on the front end is just a great opportunity. So there are tremendous job opportunities in the future. Alan mentioned them. But deliveries, surveillance, mapping, search and rescue. I was at an emergency management meeting where we're looking, if a person actually was to go and be up in Delaware Water Gap, if you can imagine, that's pretty rough territory up there. And we know somebody's hurt up there and we don't know where they are. We have to do search and rescue. Years ago, we would have had to either deploy numerous fire departments and crews or whatever type of military capabilities it would take, maybe bring in helicopters, and we would try to scour the area. For just pennies compared to tens of dollars, a drone would be able to find that individual, maybe even be able to fly in emergency materials to stabilize a condition, pinpoint it. We can find fires. There's so many areas to where, when you think of the possibilities, even from a public service perspective, that as a licensed drone pilot, the services that you could perform that heretofore would have never have even been considered for the costs. You have the opportunity to be one of the ones who can offer that service. And for those of you who are young, my goodness, you could have a lifetime career of great excitement, not to mention the cool gadgets that we're talking about here. Here's my major thing as a pilot. There's a couple others here in the room. You fly these things up here in what I considered was my territory, and I hit one of them, we're going to have a bad day, first of all, because if I find you, you and I are going to have a real discussion. They are deadly. This is deadly to me. If I'm flying and assumed in an area that's been established to me under the federal law, and that thing's in my way, and I'm coming at it at a closure rate of 150 or faster, this is going to hurt people. And that's why regulation had to come in. This is not the Wild West up there. There are no road signs, no regulatory things. You go up there, you're going to decide, you think, oh, well, there's no boundaries. But there are other people going in other places. Maybe ones who are on an instrument flight plan, who that little tunnel of airspace, they thought that was theirs. And one of these fly up into it, go through an engine or a propeller, go through the windshield, kill the pilot. Now you got a whole bunch of people that got hurt. And there's a tremendous amount of responsibility that's delegated to you when you have the opportunity to become a drone pilot. The FAA has stepped in and said, okay, you're going to responsibly participate in the airspace. We're going to establish a program to where you're going to be able to learn that craft, and if you can earn a living doing it and you follow the rules, it can fit into the whole mesh. But you have to follow the rules. I can't emphasize, it's not a toy. And when you're going up, especially if you're going to be using something in a commercial standard, you've got to realize that you may actually be putting other individuals' lives at risk. One of these are flying around a major airport and it goes through a jet engine of a commercial aircraft. What do you have? Major death and destruction is a possibility. So the FAA has a real cute little book of rules. This is called the Airman's Information Manual. I wish I could say I knew all of it, but at least I say I've gone through a lot of it. I got a pretty good feel. But these rules and regulations are what provide for the orderly coexistence in airspace. That's what this is all about. That's why you have to be certified. But the opportunities at the end is the ability to utilize commercial skills and turn a profit and earn a living. I want to wish all of you the best of luck if you can find a niche to do this. I think it's so much fun. I'm just waiting to see the little discussion. I look at the technology here that's new, and it's just astounding. I also want to make some thanks to some people who kind of like made this all happen. You've got Unity Bank and Warren County Farmers Fair, who've provided the capability to generate funds for this scholarship. And Julia, I think you got a great idea here going. And you're in Warren County, and here we are on the cutting edge right here in Warren County again. And I get excited when I look at the possibilities of things that we've done here at Tech, we've done next door at the college. Let's create a new job opportunity that all of you can take advantage of as citizens of Warren County. So next up, we got Rick Knox. He's an artist, graphic designer, and owner of Knox Designs in Stroudsburg. And we'll hear the next part. Thank you.
opportunity right now just to say thanks to Julia for the opportunity to speak. I don't really get to speak just too much, so just bear with me. All right, a little bit about myself. I attended Spence College of Art and Design for 3D modeling and animation, film and video, as well as graphic design. I own and operate a small design business, which is called Knox Designs, at my home in Pennsylvania. So, in the middle of about 2015, I kept running across online articles about consumer drones, and it got me thinking about how cool it would be to, and how fun they must be to fly. So, about 6 months, I don't know, or so after that thought, sometime around my birthday in 2016, I decided that I was going to go and get a drone. And let's see, where am I? So pretty much from the second that I got it in the air, I thought, wow, this thing's awesome. It's going to be an amazing tool to be able to take videos and photos. So I was out there pretty much every single day for months, trying to get better and better at flying. And so once I got confident enough, and that feeling of constant worry and crashing or losing it went away, I started getting excited about thinking about how the drone, I could use this drone for making art. So I thought, why not create my own YouTube channel and use that as a platform to showcase my videos. So who knows, maybe someday somebody would actually check them out and have some sort of opportunity for me. Well, in less than a year, those opportunities started to come my way, and I'm currently studying for my certification and plan on using my drone for my business in the very near future. My progress from just taking video for fun and putting that onto YouTube to becoming a commercial drone pilot depends on three things. My knowledge of the rules and how I use the knowledge to execute my skill and practice. Every time I make a YouTube video, I'm practicing for the business opportunities, and every time I'm actually just taking out in general, I'm practicing to enhance my skill. My progress depends on practice. So practice. That's the only way you're really ever going to become like an epic drone pilot. Let's see. The only way I can progress to the next level for my business is to practice so I get better. So maybe someone out there eventually would say, hey, you know what, I'd like to hire you for making some videos for me. So in my perception, drones are fun, but they certainly aren't toys. They're tools. So practice a lot and always follow the rules, which are really set by the FAA and local law. Flown irresponsibly, drones can really hurt someone, and we don't want a few people out there ruining it for the rest of us. So always fly safe and always follow the rules. Now, the past summer, the FAA revamped their rules, and now with these new rules in place, we can actually start thinking about commercial applications and where drone technology is heading for the future, which sounds pretty exciting. So if you think of drones as basically just airborne mobile sensors and all kinds of uses become possible, the potential of drone technology is limitless. And one of my favorite things about drones is how they can capture the perception that's never really been seen before, or perspectives that can never be seen before. And it amazes me that these little flying cameras have such power in them that they have this ability to view beautiful things that nobody else can really see unless you've actually had like a helicopter or a plane. Drones are becoming smaller, faster, smarter. They're foldable, even modular in some cases, and like new. And some actually lift heavy things. And we're starting to see now different types of cameras being put on them, such as infrared and even cameras with zooms, which is pretty good, and it's actually going to create better cinematography. But the technology is so advancing so quickly, however, that I don't think anyone can really predict what's going to happen in the industry today. So pretty much from aerial photography and cinematography to land surveying, agriculture, emergency services, even archaeology and journalism, the UAV job market is looking pretty good. The drone job market is opening up for UAV operator pilots and engineers at all levels of employment. Companies such as, or like Amazon, Facebook, Google, even Disney are all working on some sort of drone project today. Let's see. Other companies such as GE, Qualcomm, and Intel are working on how drones can talk to each other for such purposes as collision avoidance and automation, and to be part of what they call the Internet of Things or connected devices. So pretty much everybody today seems to be interested in drone technology and wants in on it, trying to make as much money as they possibly can. How I plan on making money with my drone is by taking photos and creating videos for others, either for advertising, real estate, weddings, action videos, time lapses, really anything that comes my way. And I mean seriously, like who doesn't want to get paid for flying a drone all day? It'd be awesome. So who knows? Maybe I'll even get into the other aspect of droning outside of art, which may be something like drone mapping. Give that a try as like a possible side business. Truly anything is possible. So once someone's certified, you can make money with your drone. That's why the scholarship program is an amazing opportunity. You'll be on the forefront of some of the newest and most exciting technology available. You as a drone pilot today have a great opportunity to take advantage of the time we're living in right now. Drones are just starting to explode on the market, and not everyone's flying for commercial use. So to see this opportunity and the potential it is in now, it is for right now. Pretty much, you'd be the first ones flying the front lines of the commercial drone industry, which is huge. So take the time now to start learning, and all you can do is apply it and seize your future. The future of drone technology is truly limitless, and the possibility of your future can be sky high. So go out, get certified, and start practicing, and I'll see you guys in the skies. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. You may have felt like you stumbled over your words, Rich, but I have to tell you, your aerial images were just volumes of eloquent beauty. But thank you, Rich, and thank you again, Ed, for sharing your thoughts. At this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Even though lawyers sometimes have a bad rap, I can personally attest to the fact that this man's honest and has integrity. Our local attorney and certified remote pilot, let's welcome Brad Russo.
Thank you. Struggled with what I was going to talk to you guys about, but picking up my son from school today, it dawned on me, my father does not know how to use a screwdriver. That's the house I grew up in. Our law office is my father, my older brother, and myself, and he doesn't know how to respond to emails. It took 5 years to get him to open up his inbox, and he still dictates his response back to the secretaries. That's the house I grew up in, and it always blew my mind that our lawnmower would break, or we'd get a new TV and he couldn't hook up the cable. That's the house I grew up in. It sounds like the exact opposite of Mr. Grotenhuis. While probably both great people, I wanted to be a different father for my son. And my son, ever since a young age, had this engineering mind. And when I look at drones, I don't necessarily see that, but I know my son does. My son's actually in the second row. Blake, can you raise your hand? He's a bit shy, and he probably is going to kill me for doing that. My son represents the generation that understands this technology that you guys are engaged in here. Last year in first grade, he got in trouble. He didn't realize he was doing anything wrong, but he was able to hack onto his fellow students' accounts at school. And we had to address that. And you can imagine, I'm trying to wrap my mind around how he used an outdated iPhone to hack into his fellow students' accounts and help with their projects. That's what he's doing. So I realized when he was born, we were going to have to go a different route. I grew up building RC cars and learning how to use my hands to fix things. When I bought my first house with my wife, it was less than desirable, to say the least, but it was a great opportunity for me to knock down the walls and rebuild the inside and use my hands and learn things that my father never taught me. And it's because we live in this generation where you can go on YouTube and I can learn how to tile, and then I can apply that the very next day. And I can stand back and be proud of the house that we built, and we're since able to sell for, and build up to another house as our family grew. I got into drones really because I wanted to spend more time with my son and do something cool. And as my wife would tell you, she told me on the way over, I'm a bit nerdy. And, so I'm in law books all day. And when I come home, my wife laughs. Like for Christmas, I bought my son a drone when he was about 3. Now, at 3, you can imagine he probably doesn't know really what to do with the drone. But my wife sent me out Christmas shopping, and what do you expect? I'm going to get something that I think is fun for myself, right? So after he opened it, he really didn't get to fly it until like 6 months later. But we've built things like this. We've built planes like that. We tinker all the time. It's a tremendous industry. I do use it in my law practice. I was born and raised in Cohasset. I'm fortunate enough to come back and have local clients and serve the community that has given me so much. I teach mock trial at Phillipsburg High School. I get to meet a lot of kids your age. And I tell them the same thing. Coming out, I was in high school, I had no real direction or purpose. I was on honor roll, off and on, but I didn't really, quite frankly, care about school that much. It wasn't until I started watching my father in the courtroom and other attorneys and learning more about our justice system that I found my passion. And that was for me, that was my niche. And after that, it never felt like school. It never felt like it was difficult to go to college because I had such a drive and passion to practice law. And law school didn't feel like work at all, quite frankly. It's something I love to do. You guys have this amazing opportunity to take stuff that you're passionate about, stuff that you love building, and transition that into a career. Now, as one of our first speakers said, a year ago, it was nearly impossible for someone sitting in this room to break into, anyone sitting in this room, to break into the commercial industry of drones. You had to do this exemption. And I looked up the process because even at that time, I was starting to use drones in my cases. So I'm mostly a civil attorney, auto accidents, premises liability, things like that. And I realized, we used to go out and just take pictures of an intersection where an accident happened. It's so much better to get an aerial shot, to have the clients actually mark out where they were, what direction they were traveling. I've done videos showing directions of travel on a road leading up to accidents, different viewpoints. It's been an amazing tool in the courtroom. Of course, my father and brother say I use it as an excuse to buy bigger and better drones, and that's probably about 90% true, but it's been an amazing tool. And when I looked at the exemptions you used to have to do, it was so unfair because the legal filings were confusing to me. You had to file these huge packets of documents, and the FAA had to grant this exemption, and all of that changed last year when you were able to take the Part 107 test. Again, that's the 60 multiple choice questions. I studied for that. My wife was convinced that I was out of my mind as I sat in bed with our iPad and took an online course much like that about aviation. And I gotta tell you, it's not too much about drones. You guys, if you can build that, you know a lot more than just about any Part 107 pilot. It's not about that. It's learning about the airspace and sharing, the air with those around you and safety. It's nothing about flying. You learn that on your own, tinkering. And I can tell you, my son is probably one of the best pilots in this room. My poor wife and my daughter, who's 2 years old right there, Livy, hi. They're used to a household with drones flying around their heads. And my son and I sitting with FPV goggles on the couch, zipping around them. When we get guests over, like my mom, who I'm waiting and counting the minutes until she leaves, I just start buzzing around her head a little bit. And she says, Carrie, I don't know how you do this, but I get her out of the house. I truly enjoy the use of drones. This opportunity that Julia has given you, is fantastic, because the only barrier now that the regulations have changed, and it's a course and a test that's attainable for those sitting in this room. It's not this lengthy and expensive process where you would have to hire an attorney. The only barrier is funds. That's it. Julia's here today to bridge that gap. It's an excellent opportunity. If there's anything when you get into commercial business that I, as a fellow droner, can help you do, I'm more than willing. If there's anything, you guys can teach me a lot if you're up to this part. I've built things about 1/10 as cool as that, but it's amazing when you can take something you're passionate about and transform that into a career. You never work a day in your life if you do what you love. I get to do that every day of my life, not with drones, but in the law. And ever since I found that drive, it was so easy to get through school. It wasn't a chore anymore. It wasn't hard to get good grades, and nothing was going to stop me from doing what I wanted to do. If this is what you're passionate about, the careers are opening up beyond belief. I got my 107 certification, and I get emails for job requests, just because there's like a list somewhere of Part 107 people. And quite frankly, I went up to the Allentown airport to take my test, and I took my test, I got a really good grade, and I came out and the woman asked what I did for a living, and I was embarrassed to say, because how many attorneys think they need their drone thing, right? So I'm in sweatpants and I'm like, she's not gonna believe that I'm actually trying to get my certification to be an attorney, because I'm an attorney. But I want to make sure that when I use something in a case, my adversary can't say, well, isn't it illegal? You're using it in your business. And technically that's true. This is the only restriction left for you guys. I highly encourage you to take the test, get the knowledge about airspace, and be able to, if you guys are in this room and you're interested in this field, you guys are the safe ones. You guys are not the people on the news that are crashing drones into buildings. I cringe every time I hear the word drone on the news. You guys are the ones that want to do it right. And Julia's giving you that opportunity. I want to thank her for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I sincerely, any student that's interested in this industry, interested in law for whatever reason, or feels that they could benefit from talking with me, I'm always open. My door's always open for any resident of this county. But please take this opportunity. Once you get your 107 license, you're far and above those around you. And I got to tell you, Warren County, and I talked to Julie about this, there's such an amazing opportunity to be, a central place for drones. We have more agriculture than a lot of just about any other parts of the state. And drones are exploding, both for, doing aerial overviews and determining hotspots and crops, but also, and I sent Julia some of the video of the newer drones, but for fertilization. It's so much cheaper to put a drone up in the air and, just physically map its course out over the field. It'll fertilize much faster than a huge tractor and much more efficiently. Those are the type of fields that await you guys. And this is one of these exciting opportunities that allow you to take what you love and what you love to build and push the technology further and use it in a way that enhances those around you, but gives you a career that you love. So take that opportunity. And again, thank you, Julia, so much. I wish I had met Fred. He seems like an amazing person. I had tremendous parents growing up. I do wish my father was a little bit more like Fred in his know-how. I wish that there were some tools that he could pass down to me. My major expense with my first house was actually getting the tools to be able to do something with it. But anyway, thank you guys very much, and good luck in your future with technology in general, but with drones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad. I'm not not ashamed to admit that I'm a fellow nerd. And when I was a kid, these things would have just made my day for a Christmas present. I love building things, but thank you so much for sharing. And as you've been hearing, there's so many different perspectives here, so many different perspectives of how drones can be used to do what impassions you. So if you can dream it, you can do it, but I hope you've been hearing the common refrain of safety, safety, safety. So important, and this online course can certainly help you in that regard. But to hear another perspective now, we have another certified remote pilot, Drew Cannon, who works in marketing with Green Power Energy. So let's welcome Drew at this time.
Forgive me, I'm a little under the weather, so it's kind of hard to speak right now. But my name is Drew Cannon. I actually met Julia this year at the Warren County Fair. We had a table there. I actually never had the honor of meeting Fred. I actually just wanted to fly my drone to take pictures of the balloon festival. That's all I was trying to do. So I approached Julia and I was like, Julia, can I fly my drone? Like, is anybody gonna yell at me? I don't have my certification. Like, I'm not gonna sell these pictures. I just want to put them on Facebook. Like, I'm just trying to, as Nick said, practice. All I was trying to do. She, talked to the FAA. She said, absolutely not a problem. I said, okay, thank you. Just be careful. Safety is the key. And if there's anything you're gonna take away from the night, don't be stupid. If you think you may not want to do something, don't do it. Wait, stop, and think. Because that extra second of thinking is going to keep you out of a world of trouble. If I can reiterate anything, that would be it. So, went ahead and I got, actually, if you want to show things, so I work for a solar company. I do the marketing. A year ago, I bought a drone. This is where I kind of led to. So maybe like take photos. Maybe you're trying to develop content for marketing like I am, and you're trying to develop websites or something, and you just need shots. And you don't have to pay for these videos or pictures. You want to create your own imagery. You can kind of do that one. Obviously, you can do it with a drone. This is just some of the things that I took a trip to Puerto Rico. This is just one day. I'm actually going back 2 more times. The guy's flying me down to take videos of kite surfing and surfing. I'm going down another time to do a videography of just a beach resort. This was a football practice that I went to for a friend of mine, just to get photos of the team. They asked for a nice photo. They actually chased the drone more and ran more with the drone than they did at practice, which the coaches thought was pretty funny. But it's just a good time. Obviously, I work for a solar company, so I do some inspections sometimes just to make sure there's not debris in the fields after a storm. With the irradiance cameras now, you can actually measure hot spots and things like these. And these aren't small jobs. You're not making, $30,000 a year as a site surveyor or a 3D mapper. You're making good money. So if you're interested in drones, I would definitely say, you want to take the test, you want to get into it. But the key is finding what you like in life and applying that to it. So my thing is I've been in renewable energy for 5-6 years now. I took something and said, oh, we're not going to pay $750 a day for a drone pilot to come take pictures. I'll just go buy my own for, at the time, $1,200, but it's all relative. So, really, it's unbelievable. When you're out there and you get the right shot at the right time of day, I'm sure Nick can attest to this, there's nothing like that feeling of doing something you enjoy and knowing that you're creating that yourself. The one thing I'm going to say, because we were just talking about this before, is you wouldn't expect it to be your big thing. When you fly, everyone has questions. They all come up to you. You're trying to fly a drone, and you'd be surprised to think it just flies itself most of the time. They'll ask you a bunch of questions. It's great. You just have to ask people to step back for a little while until you're done flying, or you position it in a safe environment. Because a lot of times you're flying close to something or doing something specific, and you want to be safe and do that. Like we were talking about before, safety is key. But really take this opportunity and take what Julia is giving you to take the test, use it in your daily life. Like Nick said, practice, practice, practice. Be aware of your situation. And just start doing it. All you can do is just start going out and trying things, and then you'll find out what you like. It's really the best way to do it, I think. So you don't have to put that on, Julia. Thank you, and happy Nick, guys.
Thanks again, Drew. In a moment, we're going to have John Matroki, a a teacher here at Warren County Technical School and a former student of his, Dan Werbin, to join us on stage. And while they're getting set up, I'd like to thank Warren County Technical School for hosting today's event. We greatly appreciate your willingness to engage and encourage the pursuits of the next generation. And we are definitely on the forefront of new opportunities here right in Warren County. You don't have to travel to a faraway place to take advantage of this enormous opportunity you young people have available to you right now. Again, with this scholarship providing the means for you to pursue your interest in this area. I want to inform you of a couple things though. I'd like to inform you that there will be a drone demonstration, I believe, shortly. And for your safety, I ask that you refrain from swatting things. We may not see them in flight today, but you know, if you want to come close to them, try not to swat them. Don't disturb them. And if you are around drones, you know, don't throw anything at them, and you know, be respectful to them, and the operator should be respectful to you as well. But finally, I'd like to thank all of you and all of our speakers today for giving of their time and experience to make this event possible. But a special thanks to Julia for coordinating not only this event, but also for the many other ways she continues to serve our local and regional community, oftentimes behind the scenes and without recognition. And I just want to personally thank you, Julia, for helping us today keep Fred's legacy aloft with this wonderful scholarship opportunity. At the conclusion of the demonstration here today, I'd like to encourage you also to remain for a while, reach out to others, and relate your interests and experiences with one another. Another word for that is networking. So young people, network with some of the experts here as you find ways to advance this growing field of remote piloting. And so now, without further ado, our final presentation of the day here. John, let's give him a round of applause.
Good evening. Yeah, we did bring a few examples of some of our creations here. We're going to talk about it. We're not going to power them up because they are somewhat dangerous. They are kind of like flying knives, spinning knives there, so they are very dangerous. So we typically power them up from afar. No one's been hurt yet. We're going to keep it that way. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I think you can hear me about the microphone, is the technology of it. Because that's really my perspective of interest, and my students also. For instance, the one you see here, the technology to build this with all its capabilities, 10 years ago, probably, if you wanted to do this, you would probably be working for the government, and it would probably cost, I don't know, $100,000 for this. Because the systems are so advanced and they're cutting edge. A lot of the systems on board here are being created pretty much every day. The capabilities here to do really good things. And you can see a lot of, everywhere you look on this thing, you see technology. Most of this is not, it's not an Amazon kit, it's not something you go on to Amazon and buy. And what you see here, these creations are not kits that you just go out and you get and put together. Our perspective is more customizing these and the systems and integrating them and making them all work together. And hopefully I have some of my students that are interested in going into this as a career path. I have a couple of them with me. There are 3 of them I can see right here now that really want to do this, maybe not as much flying them commercially, but more in the technology aspect, the design of the systems. These all fly, they're all custom built. You can see some of the capabilities here. When this flies, with this particular one, we have a small flight box which has a video screen on board. You put on, these are called FPV goggles. It's like you're sitting in the cockpit of this thing. It's almost like you're sitting in an airplane. You see a video, a live video feed coming back, showing what the craft is seeing. In essence, you can look around. It's much like you're here. When this thing is flying, you can look around. Capabilities are, you can turn your head. What we've included are other systems on this one, customizing it. A GoPro on board for high-resolution video. A flight camera so we can see what the craft is seeing. And this particular one we've custom fit on the bottom, a still camera for taking high-resolution down shots. When we designed this one, what we're going to be able to do with it is fly it over the school, take high-resolution stills of the property, and that's going to be used by a lot of the emergency responders. There's an initiative to get a lot of high-resolution overhead shots of the schools so that if there's an incident, they know what's on the roof, they know what's around the property, be it hedgerows, roads, whatever it might be. And we'll be able to fly over the property with this, stitch them together to make a panorama if needed, whatever it might be. But the systems that control this camera are now on the ground station. When we get to the right spot, we can hover, command this to take a still picture. Again, that technology doesn't exist from an Amazon drone. I hate the word drone. UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle. We'll be able to do that with this small craft, deploy it and put it up. Some of the systems on board, GPS, this transmits back not only the video of what the craft is seeing, but all the information, its altitude, airspeed, ground speed, GPS coordinates. We can go on board with our notebook computer and program a flight computer on board. There's a full-blown flight computer on here. Where we want this to fly, from the front of the property to the back, at a certain altitude, with different elevations as we move across the property. And then bring all that video back, either a live feed or a recorded feed, and then download it later, or some stills as this thing is flying, and program it all ahead of time. And in essence, while we're watching what it's doing, we turn the thing on and walk away. It takes off, flies, comes back, hovers, and lands without any operator intervention. That's the capability that we've gone to with the technology. A flight computer on board looks in essence like this. It has gyros, accelerometers. This thing knows when it's flying level. It maintains its level flight. You can have buffeting wind on the sides and things. The craft will compensate for that and keep itself level. And the technology is now in a little package like this. It's hard to believe. So some of the other systems, most of this, the systems you see here are 3D printed. They're custom, the box with the camera in it. That's all 3D printed. It's had to be designed. So there's a lot of design, a lot of creativity goes into these. I have a couple of my students, Dan Werbin. Dan graduated 2.5 years ago, and this is pretty much what he's doing right now. This is his latest creation. This one was designed to carry an IMAX camera for high resolution, for your IMAX, to take that up. That fits on the front here. The battery technology, these are all electric. They're not gas engines with all the fuel issues and all of that. These are all battery powered. The battery technology is also one of the huge emerging technologies that's making all of this possible. This is an example of the lithium polymer battery. This will fly for about 20 minutes on that one battery. And the way we designed it is we could fly it, pop the battery out, land it, pop the battery out, change it, put a new battery in a fresh one, boom, we're up again flying for another 20 minutes. which is pretty good for a helicopter. They're pretty relatively short flight time because of the power needed to keep that thing aloft, versus some of the fixed wing where you can kind of glide along a little bit. But again, most of these have the same type of electronics on board. And really, our perspective is more from an integrating of all of that electronics together so that it seamlessly all works together, because typically all those little modules don't all talk to each other. They need a lot of development and design thought process to make that happen. And that's kind of my perspective of wanting to get those students that are interested in the technology to actually want to do that and want to build. So Dan's been doing it for 2.5 years. John Grotenhuis graduated last June. He's now in college at Northampton County, but he also wants to do it for a living, maybe in a more of a military or a semi-military at Picatinny Arsenal or somewhere like that, where they have a large drone UAV group for a lot of military type applications. So, John, come up. And I also have a present student, Victor, who's here. And I know these guys all want to get their drone license and do it right. So that's kind of one of the reasons that they're here, other than to kind of talk about a little bit on the technology. I know Dan built this one, in essence, almost from scratch. The aluminum you see here, he made a milling machine himself, and he milled it all out himself. He 3D printed all the blue pieces you see. He designed all of them himself and printed them out on his 3D printer that he made. So in essence, a lot of the technology here goes beyond just flying of the craft. It's more in the creation, the development, the design of it. I don't know, Dan, if you want to talk a little bit about what you have here.
Well, you can see there's a pretty good size difference between some of these drones. More recently, I've made a part of racing drones, for example, decided to build one. Could have bought one, but so you can see, this has about the same smarts as that one. Obviously, that one's a lot larger. The reason this thing's so large, as Matroki said, was to carry an IMAX camera or just a really big film camera and to do it reliably, because something I focused on with this particular build is reliability, because let's face it, some of those cameras are very expensive and I would not want to drop them. And so it has 8 rotors. This is for redundancy. You can lose one of these and it will still fly, not very well, but it won't come plummeting to the ground. It has all kinds of complicated redundant systems on board, so you can lose power supplies, you can lose systems, and they will take over for each other. But not only will they take over for each other, but through these telemetry links, which are redundant, they'll let you know they failed. Because I've noticed a lot of different drones that I've seen. Some of them now have redundant systems, but you have no way of knowing that they failed into the redundant systems. They may as well not have them, because there could be a screw rattling around inside, shorting things out, blowing stuff out. But you'd never know until it shorted the last redundant system out, and then it can crush it down anyway. So all of the things I build have the ability to tell you when stuff is starting to go wrong, and you can get to safety before it happens. That's never happened, but I like to be prepared. You can see here, you don't hear about these very much, these fixed wing style drones. Everyone always focuses on the multi-rotors because they can hover, and that's pretty useful. But nobody really works with fixed wing very much, and it's what I got into way back in, 2010. I built a drone, multiple drones here at the school when I attended. I started out in fixed wing because back then the technology for multi-rotors kind of wasn't really there yet. They kind of sucked. You couldn't buy these little boards with little accelerometers on them. You had to have actual gyros that would you had to mix them all together. It was kind of a nightmare. And the battery is made so you can only fly for 7 to 8 minutes. And then if you did too vigorous of a control input, the motor control was meant for airplanes, not Fortunately, it's much easier to buy technology that's actually capable of doing this stuff now. Way back when I got into this, there wasn't even a gyro or accelerometer on my aircraft. It had a little 1 pixel thermal camera stuck onto the side that could see the difference between the ground and the sky. And it would use that to tell if it was level or not, and that's pretty crude. But now, as you can see with the that flight computer that he was holding up earlier, this is a little dual-core Linux computer. It's as powerful as my gaming computer was back in 2007, and it's in my hand. It advanced quite a long way. But going back to this fixed wing, something nobody really thinks about is the flight times. This thing can fly for 2 hours, which is a very long time for a drone, because, again, 20, 30 minutes, sometimes less, is the norm. And this opens up a lot of applications that I'm hoping to explore once I get my, Part 107 license, is I want to do something good with these. I've been building a lot of them, but I haven't really been doing a lot of them because I was waiting for the FAA to, get their stuff sorted. Because it was kind of, as you said, a Wild West thing out there for a while. And I was very much involved in the hobby back when nobody really knew what to do with it. The word drone was never on the news. And it could have that way, something you wouldn't before. There were saucy planes with some cameras taped to them, which isn't too far from the truth at first. But with this capability of these long flights, and you can see this camera here, you can aim it around and stuff. You can look through your goggles, you can peer around, you can look at stuff. You can store cameras in the fuselage that aim down, that one has in back. I want to do like search and rescue, emergency services with these. I was talking to some people and they wanted to fit gas sensors to them, so you could do like an automated path. You could tell these things, you give the waypoints, X, Y, and Z coordinates in the Earth, and it'll just fly them, keep doing it until the battery dies, and you have to pull the control it down. And so I was talking to some emergency response people, and they said it'd be great for a hazmat situation to have gas sensors on the plane, and to be able to plot a path out and repeatedly fly that to see how something is propagating through the air. So that's something I want to do with this one. Or, like there's an accident or a fire, you can fly this ahead because it will get there much faster than the fire truck can. And get a lay of the land before they even get there, so they can see something's gone horribly wrong and they might not be expecting.
The thermal imaging aspect.
Yeah,
Fires.
you can put all kinds of sensors on these things. And because of the smartphone revolution, everything is tiny. CCTV cameras used to be like this big, but now you can squeeze even the front facing cameras on modern phones are amazing. And they're like the size of grains of rice. But so that's what these are up to.
John, you just want to talk a little bit about your friend that works at Picatinny, maybe?
Like now they're starting to make there's a Picatinny Arsenal where they make if you take even like the new Phantom drone you buy off of Amazon, and they actually take some figures what terrorists would use for them, and basically that's his whole job is just playing with drones. So he's we'll take drones like that. He actually even builds basically the same thing you see there, but it's just a quadcopter version, same flight controllers, a lot of the same, almost all the same equipment. And I go put all kind of and one thing he was trying to do is terrorist for biochemical between terrorism for trying to prevent and how terrorists would use it in a sense how to go against.
It's like a countermeasure.
Yeah, a countermeasure for it.
See, those jobs didn't exist, 5 or 10 years ago even. Again, all of this stuff is just within 5 or 10 years. It's amazing how the technology is changing so fast to make it possible to put something like that up for a couple of hours and just keep surveying a property or whatever. It may be a forest fire, and you can watch live as that forest fire progresses, or hopefully you get it out. And for search and rescue, the beauty of these is you can put all different kinds of cameras on them. So even for a night flight, some of the sophisticated systems Dan and I talked about was even putting a LiDAR on, which is a laser rangefinder, that you can tell how far you are above the ground and actually hug the terrain, 50, 100 feet up as you're going over the mountain and down, and constantly stay at that elevation, or that altitude, I should say, and then be looking down through an infrared camera at night. Again, you know where that craft is. You've got the X and Y GPS coordinates coming back to you live. You know where the craft is. If there's a warning on the craft, like low battery, you set an early warning, so it could be out, a half a mile. You get an early warning, like the battery is going low. The craft automatically, the flight computer takes over and flies back